Good morning, and thank you for tuning into my project through an equine eye. Since the age of 4, horses have always been a part of my life, and it was not surprising that I would choose them to become the center of my project. But what surprised me the most throughout this project is that my focus changed to equine therapy and how to be of service to the community. I chose Psalm 20, 6 through 7 as my theme verse. Now I know the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving might of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. This verse really spoke to me because I knew that in order to successfully complete the bubbles that Bob assigned me, I had to, in a sense, give my project away to God and trust that he would help me fulfill every aspect of it. My project was split into 4 main bubbles: research, internships, practical, and personal applications. For my practical applications, I had to split that into 2 sub-bubbles, 5 sessions of discipleship, as well as 5 goals for my day at the barn. I began with research. I was assigned 3 documentaries to watch and 4 books to read. Out of the documentaries I watched Healing with Horses, The Horse Boy, as well as Horses That Heal. All 3 had the common theme of horses as therapy animals. For the books, I began with a trilogy by Lynn Baber, Amazing Grace, and then He Came Looking for Me, and Discipleship with Horses. Those 3 books outlined how to be disciples to God through his creation of horses. The rest of my research, I was assigned 10 and leadership. They also really drove home interviews I had to conduct. Next, I FaceTimed Jessica Albert, a school teacher, through my advisor, Ernie Lay, and he's a racetrack chaplain, and he gave me a view on the Christian side of horses in the racing world, just beyond the world of therapy. Next, I interviewed Sarah Punchon. She is a physical therapist at Du Bois Hospital, and she helped me understand that there are different branches of the physical therapy. After that, I interviewed nationally recognized author and public speaker Kim Meter over the phone. She shared her story on how the Holy Spirit guided her to work with her passion of horses as well as children. So my goal was to have 10 professional contacts. I ended up with 15. As you can see in the picture to the top left, that is my mentor, Shira Hauser. I gained her through my riding career, as well as I used her barn for my activity A Day at the Barn, which I will further go into. For my bonus research, I read 3 extra books as well as watched 3 extra documentaries. All of them were recommended by my professional contacts. The bubble I was most excited for was that of my internship one. It was divided into 2 sections: physical therapy as well as equine therapy. Over Christmas break, I completed a 30-hour rotation servicing inpatient as well as outpatient clients. Essentially, that means the first day I worked in the hospital setting with Sarah Punchon and Melissa West, and the next 2 days, I worked in the outpatient building with Angela Taylor, the physical therapist assistant, Patrick Dennison, and George Fatula. I realized I had a preference for outpatient work after I assisted George Fatula on my first evaluation of a patient. For the second part of my internship bubble, I completed an equine therapy day. I contacted Caroline Leslie, and I worked at Tadpole Lane Farms. I worked with 3 children that day, and the basic idea of therapy for children is the theme of empowerment. So it comes along the idea that a 45-pound child can control a 1,200-pound horse, and this helps the students because they learn not only balance and hand-eye coordination, but they learn confidence in themselves and the decisions they're making, as well as being able to communicate properly. My practical application included the theme of service. I wanted to create a few events which would benefit this community. I began with 5 sessions of discipleship. I wanted to set an example of service by showing that teens are there to help older members of the community. And on February 2nd, me and 3 members of the Key Club went to Hands-On Farms to assist Nancy Mayer with the harder chores, such as stacking hay, mucking stalls, and arranging feed. I'd like to give a special thank you to Daniel Leslie, Saran Ashley Douglas, and Tyler James for helping me out that Saturday. Daniel Leslie has this to say about the date. I never knew how fun it would be to work at a barn until I did during Community Service Day at Hands On Farm with Key Club. I got to learn more about the therapeutic riding program that the barn was part of. Between stacking hay and shoveling poop, doing it with friends made it worthwhile. I'd learned so much from being there that I would totally do it again. For my next bubble of discipleship, I participated in Toys for Tots. Now, this was held at my old farm in New York, Lucky C Stables, and this premise was pretty much the child who donated a toy got a free pony ride. And my job was to make sure the horses had all the right equipment, decorate the barn, as well as lead the horses around. We had over 200 toys that day, so that was a lot of walking. But it was super rewarding. And after the activities finished, I transported the donated toys, which were delivered later to the children in need on Christmas. For my next discipleship bubble, we worked as a D group to discuss the devotionals that I've written personally. So these ran monthly, October to March. I wanted to share my devotionals with my D group, which consisted of our leader, Leah Call, Abby Galliano, Gracie Walk, and our newest member, Meg Bullock. So my thought was that it's only through challenges and struggles that we can grow. So I wanted these devotionals to work as a segue to lead into that deeper conversation, and I think we've successfully done that. Gracie Walk has this to say: the devotionals were great. They created something to talk about, which led to good conversation. Molly, I loved hearing your heart, and after hearing your ideas, it made our friendship a lot closer. I think that simply praying as a D group helped us in ways we might never actually see. The devotionals always made sure that we were focused on God. My favorite devotional was definitely the one in October that was based on trust. I thought all of them were really good, but the trust one was my favorite because it allowed us to really open up to each other. For my next discipleship bubble, I wanted to do something personal. I enjoy research, so I actually went back to scripture, and over spring break, which was March 2nd to March 10th, I found most of the Bible verses that contain horses. It was interesting to see that there were 41 that upheld God's honor and use of horses. It was very interesting because a theme of my project is how horses are used in creation, and it was just really cool because it made me think about how the secular world can, in a sense, misunderstand them. And for my last discipleship bubble, I had a day at the barn chapel. So I started off with this theme verse: if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their bodies as well. So essentially, I wanted to show my fellow peers how horses are seen throughout creation, but as well as how to interact and treat them in order to form like a personal bond and connection with them. For the second part of my practical application, I had a day at the barn. A day at the barn was hosted by in Encore Farms. That was where my mentor teaches, and she owns the farm. And it was on November 19th, 2018. So I had to fill out 5 goals, which were contact, grace prep, and secure the people who were coming to the barn. Have the students take a quiz to match their personality type with a breed of horses, as well as my discipleship, which was the mini chapel, and create bonding and riding time and an end of the day trivia. So the bonding time, I think, was extremely important to the aspect of my project because for me personally, it was interesting to see that the students would actually tend to gravitate more towards the horse breeds that they received on the quiz. I did not introduce any of them, and a good example of this was Abby Galliano. She got a thoroughbred for a horse breed based off her personality, which is just very outgoing and like fun kind of. And she gravitated towards one of the mares, Chloe, which had the same personality, and she was a thoroughbred. Yeah. Also, through the bonding time, I just kind of let my fellow peers just kind of meet any of the horses they wanted, feed them treats, brush them, whatever they felt they needed in order to connect with them. For the riding aspect, that was very interesting. I'm super grateful that everyone was willing to get on the horse. Um, the oh. What was very interesting is some people were more willing to go alone on the horse, which is like Jake Canizero. He was more willing to lead the horse by himself, while someone like Jung, as you see in the right hand corner, he was a little bit more nervous, so I gave them the option of either going around independently or leading them. And it was just super cool because everyone had fun. We just walked around like 2-3 times at the ring. And Austin Summers has this to say: I barely knew anything about horses or how to care for them before a day at the barn event. I've never ridden a horse before today, and it was a great experience. I learned more about horses than I could have in a classroom, and overall, this was a very fun experience. The personal application I knew was going to be my hardest bubble. This was the one I had to find my epiphanies and self-realizations. I was challenged with the question, how did this increase my depth? In the beginning, I had no idea how to actually complete any of these bubbles, so I started with the help of Deb Moyer and Ernie. We found devotionals, like a 40-day book devotionals, and so I got some like quiet reflection time, and then stemming from that idea, I started writing my own devotionals and sharing them monthly with my D group. The biggest thing I think I've gained from that experience is that vulnerability is not a weakness. It in fact leads to spiritual growth. So when I was in my meeting this September, October with Bob, he challenged me with the quote of leading with a limp, and I think that really, epitomizes that idea. For the next epiphany I had, which set the tone for my project, it occurred during my day at the barn event. So by nature, my family is very competitive. I have an older sister, which I love, but she is very competitive, and that was just how we are. So by observing the others around me through a day at the barn, I learned how to like stop and enjoy what is going on instead of kind of racing to always like win something. And lastly, through my equine therapy and physical therapy internships, I learned how best to help those in need according to my gifts I've been given. So in a sense, this project helped me find part of my identity, as well as appreciate the little things that I can sometimes take for granted, because in the field of physical therapy, like every little thing matters. For my egg bubble, I completed a second physical therapy internship at Dreyer Physical Therapy, which is right around the corner, actually. And that was really cool because I just wanted to see more of the outpatient pediatric side of the therapy. And then I have been in contact with Chaplain Pete, and on May 15th, he is allowing me to go to the racetrack that he works at as a minister and kind of go behind the scenes and help him minister, and I'm super excited for that experience. My learning stretch. So for me, this fell under the big theme of trust. I'm a very independent person, and I am very much a perfectionist. For me, this project was hard just to let go and let others help through some aspects because I like to control everything. But I had to learn how to trust others and allow them and my faith to combine. Once I did this, however, I did feel like a burden has been lifted off me, so that was very good. and also that I should just trust, instead of trying to make a 5-year plan, I should trust that God has plans for me and that He will reveal them to me when it is time. For my legacy, I hope to leave behind a legacy of service. I have been able to establish a permanent connection between Key Club, which is ran by Saran Ashley Douglas, and Hands On Farm. So what that means is now, thanks to our Community Service Day, the Key Club is able to work on in this fall and summer riding sessions, and spring riding sessions. So I thought that was pretty cool. And overall, my goal was to help others understand that horses can have more to offer than just being work animals. That God uses them in Scripture to get to know Him. God uses His creation so we can have a better understanding in Him. And also, through having these relationships with horses, they can heal injuries, both physical and spiritual. I just thought it was really cool to see how you wouldn't think about it, but even even animals any size pretty much would be able to help those who are hurt or in need. I would like to thank my parents, Betty and Dennis, for their constant support this year during my project. I'd like to thank my sisters, Jenny Sue, as well as my older sister, Beth, who helped secure my internship at Du Bois Hospital. And I would like to thank all my professional contacts who have took the time to invest in my project. And a special thank you to Deb Moyer and Ernie Lay for helping me really develop my project, as well as Bob for giving me the project to complete. And I would also like to thank my fellow seniors and all those who participated in my project through an equine eye.
All right, I get to start. Great job, Molly. And
Thank you.
I think the thing that I was impressed with in looking at your binder, I actually sat in on one of your presentations to the senior legacy class, and just how well planned you had this. That was great. I mean, you had it laid out, and you executed very, very well. And you got those things done. Even the things that were a challenge to you, you were tenacious about that, and you got that done. And I really enjoyed that, and it came out in your presentation today, too. Learning the trust versus control, that is a great life lesson, and especially it's really good, and that's for everybody, to learn now, because, at 35 learning that lesson, you're not as fun to be around. And so learning it now is a really good thing, because that will just keep growing. I have 2 questions, both out of curiosity. You gave them personality tests before they went to the barn.
Yes.
But you did not tell them the results?
Actually, I told them the results because they filled it out. However, the horses they met, I did not tell them anything about the breed or what they were, just their names.
All right, that's neat. I thought that was really interesting too, how they kind of just ended up matching up. My other question is, when it comes to animal therapy, I am more familiar with that being a part of occupational therapy. And my question to you is, how is physical therapy entering into that realm and doing things differently than they would with occupational therapy?
So occupational therapy is helping someone get back on the occupation, and yes, that does help with animals. However, physical therapy is more of the physical aspect, learning to walk again, because they both kind of overlap. So what happens is in equine therapy, we work mostly with children, and most of them are on the spectrum, so they do have a physical disability, whether it's just a mind thing or not. That's how it kind of works in, because through the horseback riding, they not only gain the mental aspects of it, but they're physically getting stronger because they have to be able to steer a horse, add their leg to make it go forward, or being able to pull back and stuff like that.
Thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, great job, Molly.
Thank you.
That was a really great project. I'm very proud of you. A lot of things I liked about the project. The spiritual integration was wonderful to see. The research and professional contacts were very thorough. And looking at your binder, I really enjoyed reading your binder because it was a lot of interesting stuff in there. All kinds of articles. You read a lot of books. Incorporating service and involving the students in the service was really great. I heard a lot of positive things about those activities that you planned, and like Mr. Jones said, the organizational abilities that you have in creating events is just a really strong point that you have. It's just a gift that you have. And so that's really great to see. It's neat to see the experiences that you've gotten to do just as a part of this project, from the thing that you're going to get to go to meet this chaplain at the racetrack now in the future, and that you've gotten to do physical therapy, internships. So I just have a couple of questions for you. How did doing the internships affect you or change your thinking?
So before I started the internships of physical therapy, I wasn't really sure of the inpatient versus outpatient aspect of it. So by doing both inpatient and outpatient therapy, I realized that I think I have more of a knack towards outpatient therapy, because another part of my personality is I want people to do their best at everything they try. And so for a lot of the inpatients, they're post-op, so they're not extremely happy, or they don't necessarily want to be there, versus the outpatient who actually take the time out of their day to drive to the building and have their treatments.
Okay, and that extensive going through the Bible and finding all of the verses that had horses mentioned. I mean, what did you kind of gain from doing that?
So I was also challenged by Bob with the thought of how does God use the creation of horses in everyday life, and I wasn't quite sure of that answer until I actually went back to Scripture and looked into it, because I realized that yes, horses can become a very secular thing today, but originally they were meant to show God's glory.
Okay, all right, great. I just am very proud of you this year. I can see that you have really become more of a leader, and I think it is partially because you are a very gifted person, but you've become more introspective and more vulnerable, like you said. And so I'm very pleased with the project and with the work you did. So
Thank you.
Molly, you look very professional. You were
Thank
very
you.
articulate. Good job. I did count it a privilege to be advising you on this project. And as we met, my prayer for you each time we met was about the question on your bubble sheet of how can I help you increase your depth. And I have watched from a distance and read from a distance. I've seen you get involved at 242. I've read your comments on the YouVersion app, and I believe that through this project and other things, experiences this year, that you have increased your depth. And so I have a question for you about that. You said that this project helped you find your identity. Can you say a little bit more about that? So what did you find out about who you are?
Okay. So I guess I'm just very a competitive person, especially with members of my family. So I think a lot of the times I was striving to just be, in a sense, just always successful and stuff, which is a good thing. However, I realized that it's okay to kind of let go and enjoy what you're doing, and you don't always have to be so competitive, in a sense, yeah. And yeah, I realized that I like horses not because someone told me to, but because like I've chosen them. Because what happened was in the beginning, I actually had proposed a project to Bob that I wasn't extremely passionate about. So over the summer, I was kind of dreading it. But then when I was like, I'm gonna just redo my bubbles, I have to redo this. I actually found something I was very passionate about, and I really do enjoy my project.
I would also say great job getting outside of the equestrian world,
Yeah.
and great job bringing people into it in terms of the day of service and allowing us to be a day at the barn and teaching and instructing and having chapel out there. Those were all really great ways to bring people into a world that sometimes is hard to break into. If you're not equestrian, it's hard to just, get out and be at a barn and do equestrian type things. So good job doing that. We also had a lot of conversations as we met periodically, probably every other week, about stretching and not just checking boxes. And that was why I gave you the contact of Pete Criswell, Chaplain Pete. Chaplain Pete changed my life about 4 years ago when I met him on Mother's Day at my church. And he taught me some things about ministry. So I'm probably as excited for you to go and meet with him and see what he does. Because when I first met him, he told me he was a racetrack chaplain. I laughed at him. I mean, I didn't mean to, but I did. I said, what do you do, counsel people when they lose money? Because he was at a racetrack. And little did I know that he was ministering to people, as you and I have talked, on the backside.
Yes.
The people who are mucking stalls, the people who maybe are in the country illegally, whatever it is, and he ministers to them and shares the gospel. And so I think you're in for a really cool, deeper identity discovery when you go and meet with him. So great job on this. One little critique, just when you do those text slides and things, that just make sure they're readable for the people out here. Like right there, I can read conclusion and thank you. When you had some of the other text up there, it was just a little difficult to read just when you're presenting. But great job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ernie's getting old, so he can hardly read that. So you have to take all that with a grain of salt. Great job, Molly. I have enjoyed this project and
Thank you.
seeing you walk through it. You're very poised. You're a great presenter. You look beautiful up there. You're well dressed. So great job there. It was nice, and it was enjoyable to listen to you present. So just as far as presentation, I like how you reviewed your research kind of quickly yet descriptively and didn't get bogged down in that, because like I said before, I recognize that that's a big part of your project, something that you've spent a lot of hours in, but to us it's just books a lot of times, so it's hard to balance that. Excuse me. I think your professional contacts were great. You went above and beyond there. They were not all local, and I think they were fantastic. I thought your research was great. I reviewed, in your binder, you went in depth on all those different TED Talks and books and things. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
A lot of times the audience doesn't understand how every book they read, every TED Talk they watch, they write a paper on it or a review of. So it's a lot of work in there, right, Molly?
Yeah.
How many members are in the Key Club?
I believe when we were indicted last week, there's about 13 to 15.
Inducted, I guess. Would be the
Inducted,
word.
yeah.
Indicted is.
Yeah. My bad.
Hopefully you won't be indicted.
Yeah.
How did it get to 3 members? Why didn't the other ones come?
So yeah, pretty much. I secured the 3 members because it was happening Saturday early morning. But I think those 3 are like the leaders of the Key Club, so they just really embodied it well and were willing to give up their Saturday in order to do that.
Great. I just made a note here that Daniel Leslie likes stacking poop, and he volunteered, so I have a bunch of poop at my house. I have all kinds of piles there you can volunteer to do. Can you tell us more about your discipleship group?
Yeah, so for my discipleship, I wanted to just embody the themes of service, because all the aspects of my project kind of are pointing to it. So yeah, for all of them, I wanted to create like group service as well as individual service.
Okay. How many times did you meet with that, approximately? How many times did you guys meet, often or weekly or?
Oh, my D group?
Yeah.
We talked about the devotionals monthly, so
Okay.
we had, one per month.
Okay, good. Tell me about, it says in here, I was surprised, it says, I thought people might be bored just walking the horse around since I usually do so much more when I ride horses. I even planned extra activities again, just assuming I would have to keep everyone entertained.
Yeah.
Yet, I was surprised to see everyone having so much fun just taking pictures with the horse and slowly walking them. Tell me about that, what you learned from that.
Okay, so since I've been in horses since the age of 4, I was a little bit nervous that people would kind of just get bored, just like, as I said, walking horses. I was going to plan like I planned another activity, which I'm kind of glad I didn't, just considering like seeing the basic riding skills that they have achieved at the thing. But for me, I think it was just kind of cool to see how like everyone was enjoying like the little things of of that part of my project. Yeah, I felt that I needed to like just do more because again, I think it kind of falls in the trust aspect. Like I think I have good ideas, but then I second guess myself. So I was like, I'll have a backup plan. Like if they're bored, we can do this. Like I can automatically change it, so I don't look.
And that's great. That's a great plan. So what did that teach you?
Well, it taught me kind of to, I guess, let go in a sense. That I don't. I mean, it's good to plan, but I don't always have to have like that 5-year plan. Our D group leader says I write my planner in pencil, so I know like if God wants me to change it, we'll change it. So I think for me, it's kind of just realizing the fact that plans aren't always like 100% solid or complete, and that if God wants you to change them, you can change them.
And here it says, I realize that there's a line between my working mode and relaxing mode.
Yes.
So go into that. That's what I want to hear a little bit about.
Okay. So I have a tendency that when I get into like professional settings or like school settings, I always like try to do my like very best. Again, it's just kind of my personality. So what happened was that I've learned that during like school and other activities, like there can be fun aspects of it. I don't always have to be super serious, and yeah.
All right. Can you tell me why, just in general, why does equine therapy work?
So there are a lot of studies on this, actually. I think it falls under the basic theme of like empowering children, because we work with a lot of children who have some type of disability, and already because they have that disability, sometimes, like, well, most of the time, the world labels them as like, you're not smart enough, like you can't do this. And through equine therapy and just therapy in general, we're showing the children like not only can they control a horse like quadruple their weight and stuff, but that they have good decisions and like they're keeping themselves and the horse safe.
A lot of the TED Talks talked about the therapy in terms of just being with the horse,
Yes.
like not riding him. Just, can you tell me a little bit about what you learned about that? Why that's
Yeah.
special?
So it was actually very interesting because I've noticed this also at a day at the barn. Horses read off a lot of emotions. So what happens is, like, if you're nervous, the horse will be nervous too. And so essentially, what you want to happen is that, like, I don't know, like, you and the horse, like, are on the same level. That it's like the horse wants to trust you because, like, you're being, like, because even though it's the bigger animal, it's still looking to you as the leader.
Okay. So tell me about the day at the barn a little bit. I saw, like, you had this evaluation about, well, tell me about the evaluation. What some of the questions were on the evaluation of how they would match the horse potentially.
So what I did was I just did like really, really simple questions, like what's your favorite drink? What would you most likely be doing, like at like a dance or party? What movies like would you like to see? Stuff like that. And based off of that, I knew actually a lot about personality breeds of horses. So by them answering a certain amount of questions, they tallied up the score, and then they were able to like match the breed because of the questions.
I'm interested, and I don't mean this to be a trick question, but I'm interested in, so if you have 100 thoroughbreds in there, what's a thoroughbred?
So a
I
thoroughbred.
should know that at 52, but I don't, so
No.
I kind of do.
So a thoroughbred is a breed of horse. They're used mostly for racetracks or jumping. So their personality, because of like the stuff they're used in, is like high energy, like outgoing, like they like to be in a group setting and stuff like that. So I figured that we would most likely have a lot of thoroughbreds just because the group I ended up taking to the day at the barn were very extroverted, and yeah.
And is that how it worked out?
Yes.
So in stalls, how did they match horses?
So we were in a barn, so all the horses were in a stall, and pretty much the only thing the horse had on their stall door was their name. I didn't really tell anyone about them until they kind of like walked around and kind of like chose a horse to like connect and bond with.
All right. Tell me about the standing martingale.
Yeah, so you challenged me earlier this year with a standing martingale because I think it kind of like viewed into the aspects of getting a deeper understanding and also being more relatable, because during our conversation, I think it was like my second proposal, I kind of briefly mentioned to you, I was at a horse show and someone didn't know what a standing martingale was, and you said you didn't know what a standing martingale was. So I think in respects to that aspect, it was just kind of being able to like slow down and take the time to explain like what needs to be explained and not just automatically assume that people know, like if I say certain words, what they mean.
Yeah, we talked about that in terms of, I wrote here that what seems natural and normal to us that we can hardly imagine others don't even come in contact with it or have any perspective of it. It's our standing martingale. When we think those experiences are universal, but in fact, there's probably not many people in here that know what a standing martingale is, right?
I don't
How many
know.
people know what a standing martingale is? Oh, now you do. How many learned? Did you know that before? Oh, good. That's like 15%. But it was amazing to you that you just thought everybody knew that, right?
Yeah, I kind of
So
glossed over it.
I think that was one of the neat things about the project is I think you saw a lot of different perspectives that people didn't have, right? Because
Yes.
you've been around horses a lot. Okay, just a couple more things. I think we talk about you increasing your depth. I think probably what we're also talking about there is not so much that you weren't deep. It's more not about so much increasing your depth as revealing your depth, right? Revealing
Yes.
who you are and seeing that. And then I think that one of the last things I'll say is, you know, a couple things, I guess, more. I wrote down here, it's hard to be competitive without being comparative. So it's good to be competitive. I'm competitive, but it's awfully hard to do that without comparing and always competing, right?
Yes.
And then I wrote down checking boxes, because you talk a lot about checking boxes. And I don't see that as a negative thing unless it's the only thing you're doing. So I wrote down here, checking boxes is great as long as there are boxes that balance your life.
Yes.
And that's how I would encourage you, and I think that's one of the things you learned, it looks like you learned from the project, is that there has to be some balance boxes, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think this is a great project. I loved it. I love where you took it. I think it's a project that you made a lot more out of from your depth. I love the research, professional contacts, and then how much you integrate other people and introduce them to things that they've never been introduced to before. So, great job. Great job, Molly. I'm really proud of you. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. What? Yes. Oh.
I continually forget this, but there's a chance we have to have you say something about your daughter, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of work there, so.
Molly, very, very proud of you. I can honestly say I recommended not to go into physical therapy, and since age 4, I've been trying to get you away from horses.
Yeah.
I remember offering you a $500 kitten in exchange for giving up horses. So I owe everything to the mother
Yeah.
who has steered you in the right direction. 2 years ago, we came to the area, and Molly excelled at the school that we were put her in. She's excelled at everything we've ever asked her to do. But, like your project mentioned, the boxes were being checked. When I walked in, I met Jared, and because we were right around the corner, and I just kept looking at this place, Grace Prep. I thought, gee, maybe that would work. And all these nice young men greeted me, and they showed me around. I said, Mal, I know you're doing well at this other school, but I don't see the joy. I know you're just, she's succeeding academically, but there wasn't the joy. And I'm so thankful that Grace Prep got that out of you, so I'm just very proud of you.
Good job, Molly.
Thanks, Ma.
I don't think that Molly knows this because she's very little, but when we're talking about children needing therapy, Molly was that child that needed therapy. She was 4. She came to us at 2. She was very, very skinny, very, very inward. And we took her, we lived in Maine at the time, and we took her to a barn that the woman actually did equine physical therapy. And she started on Pepper. And it was a left-right. Her one hand was purple, her other hand was pink, so that she could learn with gloves on, and she has to learn to steer and to understand. And Molly went from that into jumping 3 feet at 18. And the one thing that is interesting about all this is Molly did have a chance to ride NCAA, and she chose not to. She chose to go to Messiah. And I can say Grace Prep really helped her with that decision. And I think her dad's very happy that we're done with horses.
Hey, great job. We're really proud of you. I think it was a great project, and give Molly another round of applause.
Thank you.